Bismillah. He is the benevolent, the giving and merciful. He's so indescribable. His love is irreversible, word undeniable, lyrically untriable, ultimately viable, eternally supplyable, maybe inconceivable, but beautifully believable. The true reality, there's no similarity. Gave us more than charity, peace and prosperity. Why did we never care to see it? We can keep its clarity. The Almighty, the Father metaphorically, but in the history they tried to make his word a mystery. Gave him mortality, anthropomorphic fallacy. Say he's got a seed, they can never bring the proof to me. And honestly, the greatest, the best, beyond time and space, beyond matter and flesh. Yes, he's uncomparable, yet his parables infinitely listed pictures couldn't give a good description. The pictures missing, but he created all the living in every dimension, and he inspired what I'm giving, the giver of wisdom, devoid of any needs. Anything that he wants, all he has to say is be, cause he's the untouchable, infinitely trustable, his plan unstoppable, power untoppable, the reliable, undeniable, greater than the physical, master of the mystical, the master of the worlds, the fashioner of seas, the crafter of the universe, the atoms to the bees. He is love, he is truth, he is light, he is one, he is King Almighty. All credit, all glory, all praise.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
And Ramadan Mubarak, my sister.
Ramadan Kareem.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So we have another great show for you today with another great attributes of Allah. But before we begin, let us always open in prayer. Prayer. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Say, I seek refuge in Allah against the accursed Satan. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, and Thee alone do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path Thee bestowed your favors upon, and not the path Thee brought your wrath down upon, nor those who've gone astray after hearing Thy teachings. Ameen.
Ameen. Welcome to season 3, episode, can you believe this? 22 of the 99 attributes of Allah in 30 days, where we take 3 to 4 attributes per day and go into their meaning and usage in our environment. And this year's theme is living by the book, attributes in action. And Allah says in the Holy Quran, Allah, there is no God except He, to Him are the most beautiful names. And believers, these beautiful names are the 99 attributes of Allah.
And the 99 characteristics of Allah, God, reflect the noblest of qualities and abilities. They represent the perfect ideal for human beings to inspire to. And Islamic tradition says, derive your manners from the attributes of Allah. And our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said, cultivate within yourselves the attributes of Allah. And our minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, tweeted, when you have an attribute of God, you should strive for degrees of excellence in that attribute.
Praise be to Allah. And this year's theme again is living by the book, attributes in action. And I found this quote from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, June 4th, 1972, from the Theology of Time lecture. And he says, we must go at the root to prove that the all-wise, the best knower is with us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. He says, Fard is the name used by the God of the last day, who is opening up the kingdom of heaven to you and me. The name Fard is a name outside of the 100 attributes of God. It is an extra name to itself. The Bible gives it to you like this, quote, he had a name written up and down his thighs that no man knew but he himself, end quote. So all of this is to understand now, God has taught me there is nothing of the Bible, nothing else of the Quran that is yet to be misunderstood. It's understood today. Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah.
And so we thank Allah for Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, for manifesting that book, that holy book, the Quran, through the prophet. But we also thank Allah for giving us three men, Master Fard Muhammad, who is the great Mahdi, and the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is the exalted and the living Christ, and the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who is the Messiah and the Jesus in our midst. And they are all books. And so we're going to show you the clip of the time and what must be done by the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as he tells us that this great Mahdi, Master Fard Muhammad, is the manifestations of all the attributes, plus what? A
few more.
Praise be to Allah.
As we have been sharing with you in these broadcasts of the time and what must be done, the representation of the great Mahdi, or long looked for guide of the Muslim world, Master Fard Muhammad, who is the master of the wheel, and the great Jesus, the Christ. The Christ and the Mahdi are one and the same. For Christ means one anointed with power to crush the wicked. And the Mahdi is one also anointed to set justice in the earth and to set down every tyrant. And we are saying that in our humble judgment, he, the Mahdi, the Christ, is so magnificent. There has never been a manifestation of God like him. And when the Quran says in the 112th surah or chapter, and there is none like him, never has there been one like him who is the master of that great mother plane or wheel. He is the manifestation of all of the 99 attributes of Allah plus a few more, as Allah is always coupling his attributes in this manner. He's mighty, but he's wise. He's strong and powerful, but he's the forgiving and the merciful. He is the avenger and the destroyer, but his power is always balanced with his oft returning to mercy and his forgiveness. He's always balanced. We would have to do something so terrible that would allow him to unleash the fullness of the power that he has.
Praise be to Allah. You know, dear sister, this is so beautiful as we are looking at and studying that one who came and striving to be like him. As he said, his purpose of coming was to make us into himself. You know, I was looking at this saying of the prophet or hadith. It says, no act of worship is more meritorious as reflection than thinking on the bounties of Allah and the works of his power. And the Arabic word that is tafakkur, which means to think on. It means to think on a subject deeply or systematically and in great detail. So this is why we're striving to live by the book, right? The attributes and action to systematically think on in great detail, right? Because this is who we are striving to be, which is really being ourselves. So our best self is really who we are, right? So, and this next clip we want to show, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan said, what if you and I could manifest 95 to 99% of our mental capacity? Who would we reflect? Roll that clip.
And if you could use 95 to 99% of your mental capacity, then you would be a reflection of God. This is why we as Muslims can wear the names or the attributes of God, because we are born to reflect Him, the beneficent, the merciful. Rabb, the Lord, the nourisher, the sustainer, the evolver. We all have that power to bring a thing into existence and nurture it until it reaches perfection. God made us like Himself. You got the power of life and the power of death.
Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. So at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Understanding the reality of God and understanding the reality of self. So, Sister Sadia, who do we have with us today?
Praise be to Allah. I like to call this young woman my niece. I've watched her grow up. I've taught her. I've aided her. I love her. She's a powerful and she's a mighty young person. She is a mighty, mighty vanguard here in Houston, Texas, Mosque number 45. Let me just give you some of the things that she did. That's right, 45. Okay, so she's been on the drill team for 10 years. And of those 10 years, she has been a 6-time national champion. Yes. So she's one of those people out there, right, burning holes in the ground when they drill it. She's a recent graduate of Prairie View University, which is a HBCU. She got her degree in biology and minored in chemistry. And she is studying, y'all, listen to this, to be a midwife. Praise be to Allah.
A doula, is that called a doula? A doula?
A doula.
A
It's
doula.
actually a step above a doula.
Yeah, they're two different things, but I do eventually want to do both. But yes.
Okay, praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah.
I have great affinity for midwives because I had a midwife for my children. So praise be to Allah. You just choosing.
Before I got married, I had a midwife. I was in between being single and married midwife.
You need to quit.
A midwife.
Hopefully you'll have a midwife soon, right?
Inshallah. Hey, check and see if she on. Let's see now. But I also, and Sister Renee can attest to this, that when she came home, I think it was her ushery, one of them, I was at the house when they came. I think it was Mariam at the house when she actually came home from the hospital. I mean, her dad that's my man. When I came in to the mosque, he took me under his wing and he invited me over. And that would be my getaway, because I lived on the south side. Of course, they live in South Dallas, Houston, right? And so, and they would invite me over, and that would be my weekend getaway, right? And I would stay over there the whole weekend. And me and Brother Norris, all we would do was just study, wake up in the morning, drink coffee, then do an all-nighter again the next night. So her dad that's my man. Right. May Allah forever be pleased with our dear brother.
And so you see, got it honestly through her daddy. She's also our comrade in the ministry class. So she's
absolutely
up and coming, inshallah, student minister. Praise be to Allah. She loves the word, and she loves teaching, and she loves sharing. And so she's going to be, oh, you know what? I can't forget this. She's a 6th grade math teacher as well. Praise be to Allah. So she's teaching as well. So praise be to Allah. So she's going to teach us today. She's going to give us some wisdom and some insight into 3 attributes for today. Are you ready, Sister Mariam?
Yes, ma'am.
Praise be to Allah. The floor is all yours.
Okay. Aaliyah, can you pull the PowerPoint up so everybody can see? Or is it up and I just don't know? Oh, there it goes.
No, here we go.
Got you.
Okay. Praise be to Allah. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah who appeared to us in the person of Master Father Muhammad. I further bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is a living and exalted Christ. And I further bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is our divine reminder, warner, friend, guide, everything good in this world he is. And it is in those 3 most holy and righteous names that I would like to greet everybody with the greeting words and peace of paradise of Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak.
Wa alaikum Salam, Ramadan Kareem.
So first of all, I want to first thank Brother Aleem and Sister Sadia for thinking enough of me to have me on the podcast. Being completely honest, I am very nervous, but I pray that Allah guides my words and my heart. And there is anything that I say, none of it is from me, but I pray that it touches somebody and somebody takes something away from what I have prepared for today. So let's get right into it. The three attributes that I have, the first is Al-Baari, the originator. And then I have Al-Musawwir, the fashioner. And then the last attribute I have is Al-Mateen, the firm, the steadfast, and ever constant. Okay. Next slide, let's hop right into it. So Al-Baari, the originator, the evolver, the maker, is the one who is the originator of everything. He is a creator and the one who gives distinguished characteristics to all of his creation. Holy Quran, Surah 59, verse 24 says, He is Allah, the creator, the maker, the fashioner. His are the most beautiful names. Whatever is in the heavens and the earth declares his glory, and he is the mighty, the wise. And I also have a quote to the right-hand side. It says, O people, keep your duty to your Lord, who created you from a single being and created its mate from the same kind. So as I was studying and researching about this attribute is very synonymous to the attribute Al-Khaliq, the creator, and Al-Musawwir, which I'll talk about after this one, the fashioner. And at the root, all three of these names are used in the process of creating something. You have the creator, Allah being a creator who can make something out of nothing, the one who says be and it is. Then you have the originator or the producer who initiates that process to bring forth that creation into existence. Then you have the fashioner, the one who takes that creation into its final shape. Allah created us from a single essence. And as Allah being that originator, he takes us all through a process of being created. Now, I want everybody to think. Just think for a second. Think about the mountains, the rivers, the beautiful skies, the flowers, nature, animals. Think of everything good in the world. Now, think of who created those things and who desired for those things to come into existence. God, right? Well, think about this. The same God who looked around the world and thought that in that process and in that thought, Allah needed us. And from that idea, he began originating and creating us and producing you and I. So in that production process, we have to go through things in order for us to evolve into the final product, which initially is perfection in being a God. And so when things happen in our lives, Allah already knows, and he already knew that these things needed to happen to us to bring us and mold us into that final product. Allah doesn't make any mistakes. He is the originator, the evolver, and the maker. And sometimes we have to go through things like trials to gain or inherit those distinguished characteristics that he desires for his creation. So as believers and Muslims, I want us to stand confident and firm in knowing that Allah is the originator of all things beautiful like you and I. And so the question that I want to answer is, how can we apply these things to our daily lives? We can apply this attribute to our daily life by knowing fully that Allah made no mistake when he made you and I. If we believe that Allah is the creator of all things, we have to know and trust that no matter what we may see as flaws and insecurities, no matter what we may think that should be different about us, comparing ourselves to other people, know that Allah made no mistake when he fashioned you and I. And I'm not going to sit up here and speak and profess as though this is something that I myself have mastered, because I have not. It's something that I am constantly working on. But if I can say and trust and know that Allah created me perfectly the way that I am, it should be no doubt in my mind to even question or think that the things that happen to me are just happening to me to happen. No, the things that are happening, they aren't happening to me. They're happening for me to bring about and to mine something out of me that he sees in me. So We trust the GPS to take us to our destination, right? We trust that, you know, whenever the weatherman comes on TV, he'll tell us that it's going to be raining or hot or cold. And so we'll plan our outfits and plan our days around that prediction that he has. When you start a job, you trust that that job is going to pay you on time, that whenever it's your payday, that money is going to hit your account. So we can trust all these things that at the end of the day are subservient to Allah. It should be easy for us, or we should have a better time trusting and knowing that Allah didn't make a mistake when he created us. And the greatest thing that we can do with the vessel and the life that he has given us is to take care of it in the best way. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan tweeted and said, if we are made in the image and the likeness of God, we are created by God to reflect him purposely. So I want to end off on that note with this attribute, Al-Baari, the originator. Let's go to our next attribute. Al-Musawwir, the fashioner. Al-Musawwir means that he is able to bring into existence whatever he wills. He is a fashioner of every creation and has given it special form whereby it is distinguished. And in the Holy Quran, Surah 16, verse 78, it says, and Allah has extracted you from the womb of your mother, not knowing a thing, and he made for you hearing and vision and intellect that perhaps you would be grateful. In Genesis 1:26 says, then God said, let us make mankind in our image and our likeness. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, we were created from dust, clay, and worthless water. Now you guys are probably wondering, what is this little image to the right-hand side? And that's actually a man mining or molding clay. And I put that image because as I was studying this attribute, the first thing that came to my mind was being molded, something being fashioned. And it made me think about people who take pottery classes and they make the beautiful pots or bowls or plates out of clay. And it made me think about how Allah molds and fashions us, continuing on that creative process, continuing on that evolving process. From an idea or thought came you and I. Allah created us from a single essence. And from that single essence, we then had to start the process of evolving into a final product. And once we have the product, Allah fashions and molds it and shapes us into a special form, which makes everybody different. The things that I possess or the things that I go through are not going to be the same things that my sister or my brother may go through, because at the end of the day, we are all different and we all have that special mold or fashion that Allah put on us. We were created in his image and his likeness, and it speaks about us being made in the image of Allah with the following verses. In the Holy Quran, Surah 15, verse 26, it says, and surely we created man of sounding clay, of black mud fashioned into shape. In Surah 35, it says, Allah created you from dust, then from the life germ. It says, so when I have made him complete and breathe into him of my spirit, fall down, making obeisance to him. So we were created in his image and his likeness, but that doesn't mean that we will automatically reach that ultimate end goal of being perfection. This fashioning and this molding process, it happens through trials. Trials purify. We have to go through that purification process to reach the end goal and the desire, and that is being a God. Trials are made for us to endure, to reveal and discover the gifts and characteristics that Allah has deposited in us. When you see artists who mine sculptures, it may start up as a big block of, I don't know, just a big block that you look at. And as they start chipping away and as they start mining away, the end product is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful statue. So Allah has to allow us to go through these different trials for us to realize the characteristics or the beings and the things that he has already deposited within us. So continuing on the fashion of an artist, think of an artist, any artist you may know. Whether it's somebody who does poetry, somebody who physically paints, somebody who does music, all those different things are forms of art. The artist first starts off with an idea. And from that idea, he or she creates something from essentially nothing. And once they create that, they have to go over and over and over and over and over again to get a more developed product from what they started with. Just like if you're writing an essay as well. I know for me, if I'm writing an essay, I may start over and over and over and over and over again to further produce and further develop that idea. And once they get a good enough product, they start adding finishing touches, whether it's a color here or a stroke here or a mark here, or maybe I want to put a comma here instead of a period. Maybe I want to use this word in my poem instead of this word. Allah has to mold us and put those finishing touches to further fashion that idea, ending up with a masterpiece. And in this case, ending up with being a God and being perfected in that. Allah is no different. That process is trials. And so answering again, how can we practice this attribute in our daily life? We can practice this attribute in our daily life with having patience with ourselves. Having patience with ourselves as we are going through these trials. We don't know everything. We don't know the trials that Allah is going to bring forth to us. But the good thing about it is that He does. So fret not, worry not. And in the next attribute, I'm going to talk about that a lot of the times, the anxiety and the worry that we have, that we may feel like that we are experiencing, is from us not trusting in the process, in the molding process, in the fashioning process, in the evolving process. So have patience with yourself and also have patience with Allah as He shapes us and walks with us and molds us through this thing called life to ultimately be that masterpiece, which is perfection and which is becoming a God. Inshallah, I'm not going too fast, but we can go to the last attribute, Sister Aaliyah. The last attribute that I have is Al-Mateen, the firm, the steadfast, the ever constant. Al-Mateen means one with extreme power, which is uninterrupted. His power is steadfast. This attribute is a perfection of His power. It cannot be counteracted or resisted. In the Holy Quran, it states, indeed, it is Allah who was a continual provider. The firm speaks of the plans of Allah as being firm, and I will give them time. Indeed, my plan is firm. And as we are reading the Holy Quran and studying it during this wonderful month of Ramadan, constantly over and over again, you see different verses that talk about the steadfast, the steadfast, the steadfast, the steadfast, and how Allah rewards those who are steadfast under trial. It also speaks about patience and how Allah prescribed for us prayer, how He prescribed for us prayer as a remedy to aid in the times when we may not be firm in saying that we believe while being under trial. I believe that we as Muslims will really benefit from truly understanding this attribute, being steadfast in the way of Allah through the good and the bad. We are taught that after ease comes difficulty, and after difficulty comes ease. And to stand firm in the way of Allah is to have the flexibility needed to trust and follow His plan. And it would be naive of us to think that we will not experience trial and our faith will not be tested. In the Holy Quran, it says, do you think you will be left alone in saying you believe and will not be tried? So when these difficulties and trials come, we have to be steadfast and firm in the way of Him to see it through. On November 23rd, 2017, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan made a tweet and he said, we cannot go through life without pain. We cannot go through life without difficulty. We cannot go through life without struggle. God has ordained this because these are the circumstances. He also said, don't you ever think that because you try to do righteousness that God shouldn't try you. This is how God knows whether you're His. He'll bring misfortune into your life and watch to see how you handle it. Some of us can only follow God if He does everything we want Him to do. And that really stuck out to me because I myself, I'm a kind of person where, if I'm going through something, I'll pray and I'll expect immediate results. Or when stuff will happen to me, I'm just like, whoa, like I fall down. Just being completely honest, I'm not as steadfast or as firm in the trials as I need to be. But to understand that in order to make it to the other side of those trials, you have to stay in the process. You have to stay in the process. Because if Allah was to just, forget about us, where would we be without His guidance and His love? So when misfortune befalls us, let's pray and ask Allah to make us firm in His way, keep us strong and keep us steadfast in His way through the trial. In study group this past Friday, we have been talking about building the will, and somebody who was a part of the study circle gave the point that we have to submit our thoughts and our mind to be one with God. And it made me think about, like I said earlier, that a lot of the worry and the anxiety and the stress that we may experience is self-inflicted, because at the end of the day, we aren't firm in our faith in his plan. We want to control the outcome of things like we are God. We want to ultimately put our will above his will and try to manifest what we want to happen. But when we try and exercise our plan, it's not firm like his. Something can come and knock it down, and we immediately crumble. But his plan is firm, it's steadfast, it's ever constant, it's always going to be there, and it is not going to stop. So until we relinquish that control and stand firm in his way, we will continue to bump our heads. Doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result is insanity. And we don't want to be insane. So thinking that we can continue to go about this way and handling things on our own, thinking that we're firm enough on our own, we're going to stumble and fall each time. But if we exercise this attribute of being firm, being steadfast, being ever constant, not stopping, not wavering at the slightest idea or the slightest sight of something not going our way, we will eventually continue on into that perfect process of being made into him. And how can you apply this attribute in your daily life? Stay firm stay firm again in following his way through the ups and downs. Be so determined to become one with him that you take on his mindset and release your own mindset. Release your own perspective, release your own thoughts, release your own ideas, and be so determined that whatever happens, look at it and know that this is only allowing me and making me to be closer and to be one with him. So there's a clip that I also saw on Instagram of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that I think would be very fitting for this that I wanted to share. So Sister Leah, maybe you can you pull up that clip for us?
Trial that you have where there's not a change coming. If you can hold on through your trial and not break faith with God, though you're afraid, though you're hungry, though you've lost some property, though lives have been lost and fruit has been diminished, but if you can hold on, then give good news to those who are patient and steadfast under trial.
Thank you. So you really don't want to follow up with after the minister said, but it just, hearing him say that, it really made me just think like none of the trials and the things that we go through are for naught. And so to think that Allah is allowing you to go through these things and permitting you to go through these things and not expect for there to be a change at the end, that's not going to happen. So just know that staying steadfast under trial, you have to stay steadfast under trial to even reach that change or to get that change or to figure out that thing about yourself that he wants you to. And we can go to the last slide. Actually, can you start by playing the clip that's on that slide as well before we close out on the last slide, the clip that's there. You see the link to the clip?
Sister Leah working on it.
Okay, praise to Allah. Let the clip play to sum up everything. inshallah, so far, everything that I have said has resonated. I know it resonated with me a lot as I was studying, just really digging deeper into the attributes and seeing myself in them.
Look, family, when you say you want union with God, that's a process. And in that process, there are trials, there are failures, there are ups, there are downs. And if you get tired and say, oh, the heck with it, it's too hard, and you walk away from God, and you begin to rebel against what you know is right, then what do you do to yourself? You don't hurt the cause that you're rebelling against, you hurt yourself, because now a degenerative thing starts happening to you. You can't take the baby out of the womb before time and don't place it in a certain environment without degeneration of that life. When you fall out of the process because of some trial or some tribulation, you start degenerating immediately. That's why you go backward instead of forward. So the scripture says, behold, the dog returns his vomit, and the sow once clean returned to the muck and the mire. Don't be impatient with your development.
Thank you. So with that, I think that clip really sums up all three attributes in their essence, because all of these three attributes are talking about the creative process and the process that Allah allows us to undergo to become one with Him. And if we aren't steadfast in that process while Allah is molding us and fashioning us, if we aren't steadfast in that process while Allah is creating and producing us, we will never reap the benefits, honestly, of it. We will never be able to achieve that final goal. We will never be able to be made back, we will never be able to be made into Him or reach that oneness or that unity or that closeness with Him, because we fell out of the process too quick. And I know that it's easier said than done. However, I think that when we change our mindset, when trials come to us, when we change our mindset, when we feel like that misfortune befalls us, when we change our mindset, when we just looking about our reality, it can really help us handle the trials and the things that we are going through as well. And so the last thing I would like to end off with is in the Holy Quran, Surah 70, verse 180. It says, and Allah's are the best names. So call on Him thereby and leave alone those who violate the sanctity of His names. They will be recompensed for what they do. And I put this at the end because we know that Allah, that these are the best names. And as we work to develop these characteristics and to mine these characteristics, and as Allah uses us and brings us through these trials and allows us to encounter and discover these different things, we will encounter people who try to take us off of that path of becoming one with Him. We will encounter people who will try to take us off of our deen or influence different things into our plan, which we know do not serve us, and they do not serve Him. So when we realize these things, see these things, because they will happen, let's do our best to leave those people alone who violate the sanctity of Him as we work to become more like Him. So with that being said, those are my three attributes. I pray that there was something and I said that resonated with everybody who is listening. And I pray that everybody was able to learn something and take something away. So with that being said, I would like to pass the mic back over to Brother Alim and Sister Sadia. Thank you.
As they say, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. As they say, Sister Dear, pass the mic.
Yes.
No, excellent, my dear sister. I can tell that you really put time, because in the very beginning, your explanation of Baari and its difference between Musawwir, right? And your understanding of that, even in the nuances of what makes them different, right? That was absolutely amazing in that. And I'm glad you ended with Surah 7, verse 180, because our dialogue is going to come from that. right? And when you look at the word Mateen is the extension of his strength, but it focuses on its intensity.
Mhm.
So when you add an attribute to it, like al-Razak is saying, and his provision is firm, but it's a provision that's intense, right? So it's about the intensity of the strength, right? Because there's a word that's called kawi, like the little brother kawi,
Mhm.
right? That means to be strong, right? So when you say kawi matin, you're literally saying his strength is intense, right? So that's so profound. So you lifted up 7 and 180, right? When the violation of his names, the sanctity of his name move away. So why is it important with that word intensity, mateen, and what effect do you think that it will have if we don't have that intensity? What effect do you think it will have on your other two attributes
Mm.
of being able to produce? And I'm really coming out of what you were talking about, because you really laid in self-improvement, right?
Mhm.
You really laid in self, right? So with your understanding of Musawwir and Baari, why must we be intense in that to create, to produce, right? To fashion and not pull away from it? Correct.
Mm. Well, first, it's funny that you mentioned Al-Kawi because when I was doing the research, they brought up that attribute as well. And a quick backstory, the little brother at the mosque, I was actually there when he was born. And
MashaAllah.
she, Sister Monifa, shout out to her and her family. She let me come and witness her birth. And at this point in time, her contractions were very, 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 very intense. And the student midwife who was there, she was also a Muslim. She asked her to, think of some attributes that you can constantly repeat over and over again to help you through that process. And Al-Kawi was one that she said, and which means strong. And at the time, she didn't have a name for him, but she was just like, that's going to be his name because that is an attribute that helped me through that process. So to answer your question in terms of the intensity factor, given the surah that we are talking about, I think it's important because just like, let's just say, for instance, we are building a house of cards and you're trying to build whatever structure you're trying to build. The cards in themselves, they're very weak. They're very flimsy. Somebody could wave their hand over it and the whole structure will fall down. So our foundation and all of those have to be strong enough to weather the storm or the trials as we are being produced and as we are evolving. Because if it's not strong enough, when those forces come, the ones who try to violate his name, it's going to be very easy for us to get off that path of self-improvement, to be developed and to be fashioned and to be molded. And I know, especially being a young person and being a young Muslim, going off to college, experiencing different things, or having friends who don't believe the same way as you do, if you're not strong and intense and firm on your deen, it is very easy to be taken off of that path. And so as we go throughout these different things, as we go through these trials, as we go through that process of self-improvement, it's very important to be as firm as you can in the root of it, so that when the outside forces do come and try to take you off, it'll be very difficult for them. They will have that pushback on their end, and the pushback won't be on your end trying to, dibble and dabble between the two. Inshallah, that answers the question.
No, absolutely, it does, because we're talking about, your answer was perfect, right? Thank you for that, because that strength, that intensity, and how firm we have to be when we applying all of the other attributes, right? Cultivating within yourselves the attributes of God, and how that intensity must be there, that firmness must be there, as that springboard, if you will.
Yes.
This is Adi.
Yes, so, as I'm listening to you, of course, Brother Aleem and I, you are a baby, we watch you grow up, and just to see the profound wisdom that is coming out of your mouth.
Excellent.
And then, you said some stuff about yourself, but as we are on the outside looking at you, we see that how you are developing and cultivating that attribute of al-Bari. And then how Allah is al-Musawwir and how he's fashioning you. And you talked about those trials and those tribulations, but yet you were able to maintain and be steadfast and constant in your Islam. And you talked about going to a university, right? And you dealt with those trials and tribulations of being a Muslim. Tell us, just give us some practical experiences that you had going through your trial and tribulations and maintaining your Islam. Brother Alim said the other day, he says, we believe in Allah, but do we believe Allah, right? And you're just talking about putting your trust in your faith. So talk to us and the young people as well, how you were able to maintain and stay steadfast as he continues to mold and you be different than everyone else, original.
Well, I would say I'm going to give two experiences. Both of them happened while I was in college. The first thing I want to say is that when I was in, I feel like I'm the kind of person where, from what I can remember, a lot of things, everyone has their vice. Everyone has their thing that they struggle with. And I can say for me in college, before going, there was just some things that I made up to myself that I just was not going to do. And it's different for everyone. And however, I can say that when I was in college and I told people that I was a Muslim, you will find that when you tell people, especially in college, that you are a Muslim, they start to hold you accountable for what you say that you do and that you don't do. So, they'll be saying things like, oh, you don't do da da da. I'm just like, yeah, I don't. And it makes you want to be on your deen and stand firm even more. And what I realize is the more that you don't shy away from it, the more comfortable you become. And it's to my young people listening, I don't want to come off as I've always just been, top flight Muslim. I never, had anything that I didn't, that I was always comfortable with it, because in full transparency, there were some things that I was not the most comfortable with, even going outside in public places with my garment on. So the more that you embrace it, as hard as it may seem, and as cliche as it may seem, the more that you embrace it, the more comfortable you become with it. Another thing that I want to talk about in terms of going through those trials and standing firm is that when I was my senior year of college, I wasn't staying on campus at this point. I was commuting back and forth, but my older brother passed. And it happened during my senior year of college. Like, I'm trying to graduate in May. He passed away in September. I was taking two of the hardest classes that you have to take a part of the degree plan at the same time. And if I didn't pass them, then I wouldn't have been able to graduate. And even at one point, I was just so like down in the dumps that I was like, I'm just going to take this semester off and then just start over again, pushing back my graduation date. If anybody knows my mama, she was like, oh yeah, that's not happening. So at the time, I remember it was one day I was sitting in the back of my classroom, and I literally just left. Like, I left in the middle of the lecture, and I got in a car and I drove home, and I was just crying because I'm like, I feel so by myself. Like, I truly feel like that I'm walking this thing and that Allah is not with me. Like, I wasn't cursing him, but I was just like, at this point, like, I threw my hands up because I'm like, I just feel like that it was no type of guidance at that point. My faith was completely diminished. But as things progressed and I stayed in it, I just kept telling myself, okay, Allah, I don't know where your hand is at in this, but I know that it's in there. Maybe deep down in there, but I know that it's in there. Almost faking it until I make it, even though I didn't really believe it all the way. But I have to keep telling myself that. And eventually, he allowed me to make it through. I graduated on time. I passed the classes that I had to pass. I graduated with honors it literally was only because of him. So just to know that during those trials and during the time where I felt like that he was not with me, he was. And I mentioned in study group on Friday that I can't think of a time where I have asked him for something and he hasn't come through for me. So I think that the faith that we have to have in those times, it comes through trials, but it also comes through wins that you have, building that self-confidence and building that self-assurance. And when it happens, who do you give the praise to? Because when he blessed me to do those things, none of it was me. None of it was me. It was all him. So closing that up, in those trials, I think that you just have to, even though it may not feel like that he is there, just call on him consistently, call on him, and you will see that he's been with you the whole time. So that's what.
No, Allahu Akbar. That reminds me of a Quranic verse that says, "Yet you're complete, but yet incomplete." Right, and so the beautiful thing about it is, as you're stating, how this is why it's important that we build a relationship with him.
Yes.
Right, and building that relationship with him, then what's the process by which we're going to grow into him?
Yes.
Right, and that's the beautiful thing about staying in the process. The clip that you showed of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, right? That whole various of clips, but that one particular clip that you showed really shows us the importance of this evolving into that completeness out of incompleteness, right? Because remember, the scripture says we see in part, we prophesy in part, but when the fullness comes, we do away with what we prophesied in part, right? So eventually we're gonna be complete, right?
Yes.
Evolving into that, because he came to make us into himself. Now, will it happen for me in my lifetime? I don't know. Inshallah, but we don't know. The minister is, inshallah, God willing, well, mashallah, he will be leaving us, right? To go and get that and bring back to us something, right? Of the words that Master Fard Muhammad wrote, right? So could it be? You like that phrase, Sister Sadia? Who say that? Well, could it be?
I think he may be listening.
Oh, really?
He's listening.
Could it be? But no, but think about it. Could it be that Allah now is shaping us and fashioning us to have us ready? Because remember, John Imam said he would get you across the river or the lake, paraphrasing, on his shoulders. Right? So what does that look like in terms of you going through your trials, me going through my trials, Sister Sadia going through her trials, to get us to that particular point on the other side, that we can be ready to hear what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, inshallah, will bring, mashallah, will bring back to us in that point. What's your thoughts?
Me or Sister Sadia?
No, you, one of you. I'm looking at you.
Oh.
I'm looking at you, right? Because you talk to us about that evolution, right? We're being prepared for something.
Yes.
Right? And we know that something is not just abstract.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
Go right ahead, please.
So I think that, I know for me, one thing that I can say that I think, inshallah, that this is a correct thing, that Allah is preparing me for or to do throughout my trials, is honestly to help other people work through theirs and to use my experiences as a voice. Because what I can say is that I don't remember who it was that told me this when my brother passed, but they said sometimes we go through trials not for ourselves, but for somebody else. And what I can say that I've experienced from losing my brother, being able to know those feelings, recognize those feelings, acknowledge them, and being able to help other people through it, is like, if I didn't experience it, I wouldn't have been able to show up for you in the way that you needed. Because that was one thing that I was really asking for, like a lot, like everywhere I turn, I don't think that anybody can relate to me. Like there's nobody who can really, understand what I am feeling in the way that I'm feeling it. Even my mother lost her son. She didn't lose her sibling. Like my mother lost her husband. She didn't lose her father. So even though the loss is a loss, we experienced it in different ways. So experiencing what I have experienced, I think that he allowed these things to happen to me to be a voice or to be an aid to help the other people who have experienced it. Because I know people personally who have lost their brother, and to be able to know and help them through that from somebody who has experienced it, I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not gone through that trial. So in my opinion, I think that's what I think he may be preparing me for or allowing me to experience.
And you know, the path that that you have chosen with the permission of Allah to be a midwife, you know, you are aiding someone who is going to death's door to bring back life, you know, and to be upfront and center to go through that process to bring that spiritual being into this world. And that's profound.
Yes, ma'am. Praise.
Yeah, no, it really is, because you know our discussion of all of these attributes, in particular these three, you know, to the intensity of it, right? You described to us, you know, in the car leaving class, and we've all been that in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right? That using those other attributes, right? But that intensity. Right. And then Allah now desires to make us firm in that intensity in the space of striving to be right.
Yes.
Right. So the intensity of the pain of the emotion, but also the intensity of the striving to be a righteous Muslim.
Yes.
Right. Which is absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
Absolutely
and I think
beautiful. Go ahead.
Really have to, what you said with the intensity to strive to be a righteous Muslim, like you really have to, that on its own has to really be firm and intent. I think that there's a difference between, you know, striving and trying. Like trying is just, you know, I'm gonna try it this one time, and if it don't work, okay, you know, I tried. But striving is to get up every single time and continuing to make that intentional effort to do better or to be better. So when it comes to us as being Muslims, when we make an intentional effort to strive, it has to be intense, because like I said, you can't say that you want something and think that Allah is not going to test you on what you say that you want. You say that you want to be a righteous Muslim, and immediately the trial is going to come to test you on what you say that you want. I know when I stood up and said that I wanted to get registered, to me it felt like, okay, like immediately stuff came testing me, saying, are you going to actually follow through with this, or are you just going to, you know, hey, I said I'm gonna do it, it's going to happen one day. No, when you say that you want to do something, go full force, be intense, be firm with it. Don't be weak, don't be timid. Talking to myself as well, especially when you say that you want to do these things, or when you ask him for these things, be firm in that, stand firm in that, be intense with that, be steadfast in your efforts, and watch how Allah will bless you. That's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. And I love Sister Sadia, this, you know, when you prepare, and Sister Mariam, how you did, and then we can come off the pages of what you prepared and have a discussion, right? And that really lets us to know that you really put some time into it. Of course, there's still always more to learn. We can always do a deep dive, but the ability to come off the pages, you know, and just start swimming as we're having this discussion, right? You know, which is absolutely beautiful. And so thank you for sharing. And I know for myself, what you shared, and knowing some things about you, watching you grow up. I didn't watch you being born now. I was there when you came home, right? I don't know about nothing else, you know, but praise be to Allah. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us.
So I thank you for having me.
And may Allah continue to bless you, sis, in the path that you desire to be on, to help our sisters bring in children naturally, you know, without the assistance of all of this medical aid, just going through the natural process.
Yes.
And being there for the sisters who are, you know, travailing during that labor process. So something right there.
Yeah, I see why the prophet, peace be upon him, say when a man asked him, who should we honor? He said, your mother 3 times. So you know, and then the father. We're gonna get some love up in there. But man, but praise be to Allah.
Sister Mariam, before you leave, tell us some of the things that you're going to be working on, and how can we get in touch with you in the future, the people that are watching. Because you are an influencer as well. I hope you know that.
Oh, well, I don't want to plug my Instagram, but if anybody wants to keep up with what I'm doing, I think I'll be able to type it in the chat if anybody wants to, but it's Mari, MAHRI_MUH. Things are what will be happening in the future. I'm a part of Nation Building Houston, which is a youth initiative at our in Houston that we have, where we want to bridge the gap with the community, really, and just make a youthful presence in the community and in the efforts of fishing in our young brothers and sisters. So be on the lookout for some events from that. I'm a part of the ministry class. So if you're in Houston, come out to the study group on Fridays to be a part of our study conversation. That's really it from what I can think of.
That's a lot, sis. That is a lot. So
She does an excellent job in study group.
Praise be to Allah.
Keep the hottest conversation we having now, just that the conversation flowing. If the brothers were answered, now I'm just saying. Inside joke.
We just hungry during Ramadan.
We got some more feedback on this past Friday. We got some more interaction on this past Friday. So
okay, good. Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah.
All right, well, that's it for this episode, family. Another beautiful episode with our dear beloved sister Mariam Muhammad. So who do we have tomorrow, Sister Aliyah? For day 23.
There we go. The
Our
Twitter
dear
general
brother.
himself.
That's right. Brother Abdul Qiyam Muhammad, who is the host of the Teachings Podcast and the Twitter general, who is one of the individuals behind the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's social presence. So praise be to Allah. And if you want to watch today's episode or the replays from previous episodes of this season 3 or season 2, you can go to Facebook at Mosque 45 or YouTube at 99 The One, The Most Beautiful Names. Go ahead on and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at 99TMBN. And you can also listen to us because we are streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and Podbean, which is the platform that we listen to Umar Reflects every day, 5 a.m. Eastern or 4 a.m. Central Standard Time. Praise be to Allah. And we are a nonprofit organization, a 501(c)(3), and every donation is a tax write-off. And so we ask you to continue to support this program and other programs that we will have in the future. And we also would love you to help us to get out there in that community so we can support our brothers and sisters. You can open up your phone, put your camera on the QR code, a link will show up, you press the link, the donation page will come up, or you can manually put it in for Cash App at $99 The One, or Zelle at 99TMBN@gmail.com. And we thank you in advance for what you have already done supporting 99 The One. Praise be to Allah. The closet is open. KC, Camila's Closet, where we create stylish and modest designs, especially for you. Sister Mariam and I are wearing KC right now.
Yes.
But we don't.
I can't wear mine. I have to be class A. You know, I'm at the slide. Me next time y'all coming on with Camila's Closet, I'm at the slide. At least have them hung up behind on my golden. Y'all like my golden child backdrop?
Yes, sir. So open up your phone again to the QR code, scan the code, press the link, and you can use the 99 to 1 code for 10% off your next order. And this is valid until April 14th. Praise be to Allah. And order your Ramadan journal and planner, a 30-day companion, including the daily Quranic Jews, weekly reflection, prayer trackers, and more. And this from our dear beloved sister, Sister Fatima Muhammad. I encourage you to watch her episode as well. And you can visit at mysistershouse.org to purchase yours. And Ramadan 2024 Quranic Reading Journal and Historical Digest from our dear beloved brother, student minister, Brother Demetric Muhammad. You can go to shop.researchminister.com to purchase yours. I encourage you to get the past seasons Ramadan journal because it has so much history and information from believers and from the history of our nation. And so praise be to Allah. And we close with these words of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who is reported to have said, cultivate within yourselves the attributes of Allah God. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, if you run down all of the attributes to characteristics of God, these are also the attributes of human beings who are crafted by the Creator. Praise be to Allah. All right. So with that being said, Assalamu alaikum and
Ramadan
Mubarak.
Mubarak. Thank you, Mariam, for participating.
with enthusiasm.
Bismillah. He is the benevolent, the giving and merciful. He's so indescribable. His love is irreversible, word undeniable, lyrically untriable, ultimately viable, eternally supplyable, maybe inconceivable, but beautifully believable. The true reality, there's no similarity. Gave us more than charity, peace and prosperity. Why did we never care to see it? We can keep its clarity. The Almighty, the Father metaphorically, but in the history they tried to make his word a mystery. Gave immortality, anthropomorphic fallacy. Say he's got a seed, they can never bring the proof to me. And honestly, the greatest, the best, beyond time and space, beyond matter and flesh. Yes, he's uncomparable, yet his parables infinitely listed pictures. Couldn't give a good description, the pictures missing. But he created all the living in every dimension, and he inspired what I'm giving, the giver of wisdom, devoid of any needs. Anything that he wants, all he has to say is be, cause he's the untouchable, infinitely trustable, his plan unstoppable, power untoppable, the reliable, undeniable, greater than the physical, master of the mystical, the master of the worlds, the fashioner of